Endurance Junkie Podcast, episode 78. Hey Junkie, what's up? Thanks for joining me on a new episode of the Endurance Junkie Podcast, the show where I will be interviewing some of the fastest, smartest, and most inspiring people active in the endurance world today. Now, if you like these little interviews and don't want to miss any future episodes, head over to iTunes or Stitcher and subscribe to the show. I would also appreciate a rating and a review, as it's one of the best ways for potential new listeners to find us, so it's really important, and I appreciate everyone who has done so far. Feel free to visit the website, junkiepodcast.com, for the complete archives, and there is a contact section at the bottom, so feel free to send me your comments and suggestions for possible future guests. I would really love to hear from you guys. Alright, on to today's episode. Zane Robertson is a New Zealand middle and long distance runner who at the age of 17 moved, together with his twin brother Jake, from New Zealand to the town of Iten in Kenya to live and train with the best long distance runners in the world. Today, Zane is one of only 4 non-Africans to have run a half marathon below 60 minutes, and he grabbed a bronze medal at the 5,000 meters at the 2014 Commonwealth Games. Hi Zane, thanks for coming on the show here today. Now, can you start off by telling us a bit about yourself and your sporting background growing up in New Zealand?
Okay, well, my name's Zane Robertson, and I first started running seriously when I was 14 years old. I joined my first athletics club, and basically I discovered I had running talent since primary school. I didn't train a lot, I just ran the races, and I won everything at an inter-school level. But when I reached high school, I got beaten in my first year quite badly, and I didn't like that feeling, so I started to train, and the next year I won everything. And joining my first athletics club with my twin brother, we discovered within 6 months we became national champions, and basically from there my career took off. And since moving to Africa in late 2006, now I'm at an international level, top of the world really. I've run under 60 minutes for the half marathon, and I've medaled at the Commonwealth Games and the Intercontinental Cup on the track.
Oh, cool. So what's it like growing up in New Zealand as a runner? I think you live in a nation that's really focused on things like rugby and cricket and typical Commonwealth or English sports. What's the running scene like down there?
I think you kind of feel like an outsider. I mean, the track and field or the athletics, it's kind of you get the rugby players who do the sprints or the high jump and things like that occasionally. But being a distance runner, you feel left out, especially at the level Jake and I were trying to focus to. We were trying to make it internationally, and we always had that focus since we started training. And basically, the funding, it's so hard to get funding and support at that time. So by the time we left to Africa, we were really quite alone. And I guess it was just another aspect to drive us to make it professionally.
And where did that drive come from so early in your lives to make it to the highest level? And a lot of 14, 15-year-olds, they're all about, playing outside and making friends and girlfriends, I think, at maybe that age or a bit later. But you guys, pretty soon you were really, really determined to make it to the top level.
Yeah, we were socially outcast or a little bit misfitting in high school. Through the intermediate school, we tried our best, and we were always just on the outside of the popular group. But when we got to high school and we started focusing on our running, we just stopped caring totally, and that became our total drive, really, just to be the best we can, and prove everyone who could doubt us wrong. Like, we got a lot of comments from teachers or just other people saying, you guys are like losers, or you won't make it, or what if you don't make it? So basically our drive came from there, and we wanted to prove people wrong, but also prove ourselves right.
It's pretty harsh that you can even get these comments from teachers and your peers.
Yeah, I think as time went on, we became more and more outcast. So it was like, we like to say running saved our lives because it gave us something positive to focus on and to use that negative energy and turn it to a positive. You can either be depressed by these types of things and do nothing with your life, or you can get some type of repercussion from it in a positive way.
Okay. Yeah, you touched on the subject before. You and your brother moved to Kenya at age 17 to go live and train with the best in the world. Where did that idea come from, and what triggered you guys to actually go and do it?
So in 2006, the World Cross Country Championships were in Japan, Fukuoka. And my brother was selected on the junior team, and the three other guys were a lot older than him. But basically, the New Zealand team was on the same floor in the hotel as the Kenyan team, and Jake made friends with them quite quickly and was always like so interested to train with them. So he asked if we come out to Kenya, can we train with you guys? Is it safe? Is it okay? And they said, yeah, definitely come out. And so that's where the idea was born. And late the next year, later that year, it was late 2006 that we finally left New Zealand, and we went in search of these guys. I think the only problem was we had no contacts. We only knew their names and where they were based. So once we arrived in Kenya, basically we were completely alone. We took a bus out to Eldoret City, and we arrived in Eldoret at 1 a.m. in the morning. Slept a few hours, and the next morning went out to Kaptagat looking for one of the athletes we knew. And the first athlete we stopped on the side of the road happened to be Benjamin Lemo's nephew, so he took us straight to one of the camps.
Oh, okay. How did your parents and stuff like that react to that decision to actually move? Because it's a pretty big step.
I think, nobody really knew what we were getting into. We knew ourselves a lot more than anyone else, so we were always trying to explain to them that it's not a desert, it's not a dangerous place, and these guys are millionaires, the world record holders of the sport. So not everyone is in poverty there. Our parents eventually agreed because they knew how driven we were, and they knew we were going to make our own money and do it anyway, so they thought we better support their idea. A lot of the public around our parents gave them quite a lot of flack for a while, and right now, that once the results started coming out, obviously our parents are very proud of what we've achieved to this point, and everyone who doubted, I don't think they can say much anymore.
No, that definitely can't. Your parents probably thought, we'll give them a couple of months and they'll be back anyway.
Yeah, we always had the return ticket as safety, and we just pushed it until we couldn't push it anymore, and it eventually ran out. So we did have a safety net with that ticket, and we never thought about returning, because returning would be... It was like we're giving up. If we returned, and everyone would just say, basically we were right.
Yeah. So yeah, you guys arrived at that training camp. You found the guys that you met in Japan. Yeah, what happened there? Did you guys say, "Hey, we made it. Can we train with you guys?"
Yeah, so the problem with those training camps were Benjamin Lemo's camp, who was the 2005 world champion. His camp was full of athletes, and the younger athletes were sharing beds. So he took us down the road to the global camp where Patrick Sang, the head coach of Eliud Kipchoge, and these guys were training. And also their camp was full at the time. So they suggested that we move out to Kaptagat and stay in the hotel, which we did for one night, and we met some of the local athletes who were training nearby at, let's say, a more run-down camp with no real leadership at that time, so everyone was supporting themselves. And we decided, yeah, let's go and live local with these guys, and it was a bit of a struggle, but it was thoroughly enjoyable. You know, it was like living a camp life in the middle of the bush, bucket showers in the middle of the field, you know, just very simple.
So that was just a life of train, eat, sleep, and do it all again?
Yep, and we were okay with that because we already prepared our minds for that while we were in New Zealand. We knew what we were coming out to experience, and that's, you know, life in the slow lane, but it's the best life you can possibly have for a runner.
Yeah, so can you talk a bit about those first couple of years that you were there then, and what a typical training week looked like then, and how much time did you guys give yourselves to improve and make it to the highest level?
Yeah, so we spent about 1.5 months in Kaptagat, on the other side of Eldoret. We trained with this group that we were with in the camp, and once a week we'd come in to join the track sessions with Eliud Kipchoge's group, and Patrick Sang as the coach. He helped advise us a lot on the way they train and the structure of what training was. At that time, it was basically the typical Kenyan program. Monday would be 70 minutes in the morning. Tuesday would be a track session. Wednesday would be another easy run. Thursday would either be fartlek or a tempo run or a hill session. And then Saturday again would be a track session or a long run. So that's basic Kenyan structure, with jogging in the evening and the local gym weights, which are made of like a bucket of cement on each side of a steel bar. So that was the week, the general week we'd do. After a month and a half, we ended up meeting Shaheen of Qatar. Is still the world record holder of steeplechase, and he was one of Jake's friends in Japan, so he invited us out to train with him in E10 and join his training partners, and we decided to go there and change it up. The good thing about E10 was there was a small township, so the local shops had things if you needed to buy anything. We weren't completely in the middle of nowhere, and also E10 had a better gym, so and a dirt track local, so training was a lot easier there without travel, and that's where we are based still now. We spent the next year struggling again, you know, sometimes going without lunch, and especially when Shaheen was injured and he wasn't around. He was paying our rent and supporting us a lot, and basically we lived the real Kenyan lifestyle. So
when did you start racing internationally, and how did that evolve?
Yeah, we took our first trip overseas, thanks to a manager the late Zane Robertson, who passed away, and he found us in Kenya actually, and he asked about what are these young boys doing out here, and we told him we want to make it at professional level, and our plan is to stay here and stick at it until we can do that. So in 2008, we got our first chance to race overseas at a track season, and we were trying to qualify for the World Juniors at that time. Both Jake and Jake qualified in the 5,000, and I qualified in the 1,500. But due to New Zealand, the president of the federation at that time, he had no interest in us, and we were already in Europe. Basically, we needed to be selected on the team, and we could just cross the border, be driven across to where the World Juniors were held in Poland. We were never selected. No other New Zealanders were ever filling out the space, so basically we were just ignored. And that was our last chance to run the World Junior Championship. So our track season was, I would say, a disappointment, but also a learning experience for the future. And yeah, not really an international standard, being so young and going to altitude. It takes a while to get the real effects or repercussions from that. So we were overlooked for a few years. Basically, people didn't know where we went until the real results started coming.
And then I guess they came knocking at your door.
Yeah, I mean, people just overlooked the small results until one day a big banger came out. Jake ran his first 10K road race, and he was fourth in a sprint finish, but he ran 28:41 in Prague. I can't remember how old he was at the time. I think it was 20 or 21. But that same year, he went on to being a world championship finalist in Daegu in the 5,000 meters, and that's when people started paying attention.
Okay. And you made this more or less the same evolution as your brother. I think, at the moment your personal bests are a bit faster than him. You went on to grab a bronze at the Commonwealth Games in 2014 on the 5,000 meters. And then, you went on to that 59:47 at the half marathon in 2015. Third fastest time by a non-African over that distance. I guess these performances have definitely put you guys out there on the international level. Has it also changed the way that you look yourself as a runner? You come from that shorter background, but you seem to do pretty well at the longer distance.
Yeah, I'm really quite disappointed I ended my track career on the results. Even though there are good times, they're not really reaching my full potential, just due to management issues and not getting the right race on the right time. As an athlete, you have to train and peak. So whenever I was really peaking or really ready to race, I was either told a day or two before the race, you can race this Diamond League, and then the results weren't showing what my potential was capable of. I think I could have run below 13 minutes for the 5,000, and definitely the year of 2014, when I ran 3:34:19 for 1,500 as well. I felt in that race I was capable of running a 3:30 or even a 3:29, just tactical errors. And after the track season, I went back to Ethiopia and I joined the marathon group I was always joining. And I'd always wanted to run a half marathon from the year before. I was quite excited by trying a longer distance, as training had shown I could have run a really good one even the year before. So my opportunity didn't come until February the next year, and by that point I was ready physically, a little bit nervous mentally as it was a new distance, but I took away the pressure by just trying to win the race, and then the time came for itself.
And how did that change? Your life outside of running. Did it open doors towards sponsorship and other opportunities?
Yeah, because we'd always struggled to get I don't know if it was just a management problem, because I changed managements as well. Basically, Adidas came knocking first on my door, and I was lucky enough not to sign anything before I ran my half marathon, but because obviously my half marathon's my best result yet, and it kind of made me consider a road career as well. Like, I really enjoy the roads, and I'm actually really good at this. I think potential wise in world rankings, I'm ranked a lot higher on the road than on the track. So it made me consider the future and towards the marathon.
Yeah. So is that the goal for the next couple of years? Just purely half marathon and marathon? Because I've read you were also involved in the sub 2 hour project. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was selected as one of the athletes to work with for the sub 2 hour project, but things didn't work out, and we started to look different ways. So I left the project last year, at the end of last year, and after a stress fracture in my lower back.
Oh, okay, but your own focus is still the marathon for the next for the future.
It definitely is. It definitely is. I believe in myself, and what I know already, I know I can do well in the marathon. It's just about staying healthy, no injuries, no sickness, and being fit on the day. It's the hardest thing for both my brother and I, just living here in East Africa without constant physio attention, without medical support if needed, if sick. So a lot of things while training at 100%, it's really hard to get to the start line always and deliver.
No, because I think you were set to make your marathon debut in Amsterdam there a couple of weeks ago, but that didn't really turn out the way you planned it, right?
Yeah, like this whole year I focused on the marathon, and I was so motivated for it. I trained really, really hard, and at the I think it was around May, I rolled my ankle quite badly in the forest run, and since then I started having some type of reaction in the heel, which now I know is plantar fasciitis. So I trained on that for London, the World Champs. I kept training through it towards Amsterdam, and because of the pain I had in my ankle, I couldn't perform to my best at the Great North Run half marathon. After that, it got worse again, and because I spent all year preparing for Amsterdam, I thought, go and try anyway. I had nothing to lose, basically, and I ended up having too much pain in my feet, compensation while running, and hip issues. I couldn't go on past 29k. I had to stop the race.
So have you been able to figure out what is wrong and recover from that?
Yes, I had MRI scans the other day, and luckily no ligaments or tears or colonial heel spurs, so the bones are completely okay. It's just the soft tissues near the heel which plantar fasciitis affects. So it is painful, but it is treatable, and I'm seeing a physio now. I had some dry needling done today, which is not very nice. It's quite painful for the fascia, but I know once I'm healthy again, I can focus for my next half marathon and my next marathon, which this time I really hope to deliver what I'm capable of.
Okay, we'll keep an eye out for that. It's been 10 years now since you guys moved to Kenya, to East Africa. What benefits have you guys received there that you couldn't have gotten anywhere else?
I really think the biggest advantage we have is mentality, because we're not scared of the East Africans. We live here, we train with them, and if I'm in a race without one of them, I feel like it's strange. I think a lot of other runners, when they're on the start line, they're already running for second or even 10th place because they give up mentally. If you're beaten mentally, it's already over. So the mental gains we have of living out here, it's just a huge thing.
And how,
everything starts with the mind.
Yeah. And how have you seen the town where you live? How has it transformed over the last 10 years as well? I think you guys were the first white ones to go to Kenya and live and train with these athletes. There's more and more of them now. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think we were some of the first. In 2007, when we arrived in E10, it was not even a speck of what it could be, what it is now. Especially since the government started supporting the local county, because it's become such a sports mecca, a running mecca in the world. In the last few years, the British team, the Swedish, the Germans, so many international teams have brought their athletes out to train there, and training camps, big hotels are coming up, and back in 2007, there were a few rental houses, a few tea rooms, and not much else. Basically, the roads have developed a lot more, and through the rainy season, they're maintained a lot. So there are a few good roads that stay okay now without getting muddy during the rainy season.
So it opens up for everybody, and that's probably a good thing for everyone. What do you see as your biggest achievement in your career so far, and what's your biggest disappointment?
I'd say my biggest achievement is running under the 1 hour for the half marathon. It's by far my most iconic performance, because it changed like my whole life. And it was the one race where I was 100% healthy on the day, and I actually delivered. I definitely don't think that's the end. I think I can go faster for sure. It's just about getting to the race again when I'm healthy. And my biggest disappointment, I would have to say just the injuries I've faced, because I know potential-wise I can go so much faster, and I'm yet to do that. I'm always stopped by an injury at the wrong time. Last year, I was training for a world record attempt on the 15K in Seven Hills, and just about 2 or 3 weeks before the race, I had pain and I couldn't walk, and that was later on found out to be a stress fracture in my lower back. So I'd say that was my biggest disappointment so far.
Okay. And the greatest piece of advice you've ever received?
Greatest piece of advice, it would be just listen to the body, because if you have the knowledge of what you're doing in training, despite if you have a coach or not, you should always learn about why you're doing a session, not just listen and do. Don't be a dumb athlete, learn about why your body needs this, and then understand your own body. If you can learn to understand your own body, I think you can avoid sickness and injury, and you can learn to push a little bit harder every time and make it to the top level.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for that. And thanks for your time and for coming on the show. It's about the half-hour mark here. So how can people get in touch with you if they want to, Zane?
I think the best way is now on Instagram. They can private message me. I always try to reply, even if it's not straight away. I'm always updating training diaries on there as well. They can see what I'm doing, normally on a weekly or daily basis. I put a lot of training advice up there too, so it's a good way to stay in touch with me.
All right, cool. I'll put that link up on the show notes page. Feel free to give some love to your sponsors.
Yeah, well, Adidas Running have supported me the last 3 years, and a huge thank you to them for that. Athletics New Zealand, who continue to support me towards my goals in Tokyo Olympics, and also Mortine, a very good new carbohydrate science drink, and really the best in the world right now for half marathon and marathon running.
Okay, cool. Anything else you want to plug?
I would just say thank you to all my fans and everyone who believes in me. I didn't start this journey to become an icon of the sport, but if along the way living my life, I've become that. I'm very grateful and humbled to have that kind of support in the fan base. So thank you to all the fans.
Perfect. One last question to finish off. You step outside the house there after the interview and you find a lottery ticket that ends up winning $10 million. What do you do?
I would still run. I run for the passion and the love. I think that's what keeps me going even while I'm down. So I think I would use that 10,000 to invest, just to have financial stability, and I would put it away and think about really how can I use this to help other athletes in the future, but also help myself as a business.
Yeah, okay, makes sense. Thanks for your time, Zane. Much appreciated.
All right, thanks a lot, Peter.
Alright, Junkies, thanks for listening to this episode with Zane Robertson. And I hope you'll join me next time. Cheers.